We're already organizing a Marshall Plan. We already have a team of looking in Reimagining LA 2.0. We're starting to organize how we can put together a collection of individuals on philanthropy for recovery, how we can organize the region, a Marshall Plan, how we can organize the region.
Hey, I've seen this one. This is a classic.
The BBC is estimating that the LA fires cost over $135 billion in damages. And there's reports of over 9,000, almost 10,000 structures that have been damaged or destroyed. Which means two things. Number one, there is over $135 billion worth of work right now just on rebuilding. Number two, 9,000 structures were destroyed or damaged. Which means at minimum, 9,000 structures are going to need to be repaired or rebuilt, which means we're gonna need a lot of contractors and a lot of builders over in LA as fast as possible. But don't take my word for it. Let's see what Gavin Newsom has to say about the wildfires. He's the governor, right?
Over the course of the next several years, Los Angeles will be host to the World Cup and then the Super Bowl and then the Olympics. With this rebuilding effort needing to take place, is LA going to be ready for all of those global events?
My humble position, and it's not just being naively optimistic, that only reinforces the imperative moving quickly, doing in the spirit of collaboration and cooperation. The President of the United States, Donald Trump, to his credit, was helpful in getting the Olympics to the United States of America, to get it down here in LA. We thank him for that. This is an opportunity for him to shine, for this country to shine, for California and this community to shine. The opportunity with all of that and all that opportunity and that pride and spirit that comes from not just hosting those three iconic games and venues, but also the opportunity, I think, to rebuild at the same time. And that's why we're already organizing a Marshall Plan. We already have a team of looking in Reimagining LA 2.0, and we're making sure everyone's included, not just the folks on the coast, people here.
Did you just hear what he said? Reimagining LA 2.0. What does that tell you? I already see it happening. LA 2.0 is all the single family homes that will burn down. You're now going to be able to build apartment complexes. And you're also going to be making way for businesses. I see it right now, and I'm going to show you why I think that after we finish this. Stay tuned.
Here that were ravaged by this disaster.
You just said you're organizing a Marshall Plan for the rebuilding of California. What is that Marshall Plan? Tell us about this Marshall Plan.
We're just starting to lay out. I mean, we're still fighting these fires. So we're already talking to city leaders. We're already talking to civic leaders. We're already talking to business leaders and nonprofits. We're talking to labor leaders. We're starting to organize how we can put together a collection of individuals on philanthropy for recovery, how we can organize the region.
So right there, he said philanthropy and how we can reorganize the region. Reorganize the region. What does that tell you? To me, that sounds a lot like zoning. Like I said before, businesses and apartments are just going to be popping up everywhere.
How we can make sure that we are seeking federal assistance for the Olympics more broadly, but also federal assistance for the recovery efforts, and how we can galvanize the community with folks that love this community to really develop a mindset so that at scale we're dealing with the scope of this tragedy and responding to it at scale with efficiency, like the executive order I talked about, time value of delivering projects, addressing building codes, addressing permitting issues, and moving forward to rebuilding and being more resilient.
Now he's going to talk about suspending the environmental regulations.
What is this executive order? What are you hoping to accomplish?
Look, we've got to be thinking 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years ahead. At the same time, we're focusing on the immediacy, which is life safety and property. And so that's exactly what we're doing with disaster assistance, making sure people are getting their applications, addressing the issue of fraud. And that's an issue we've got to address, price gouging. So executive orders on price gouging, recovery. We want to get inspections, units like this. We want to get our inspection teams out here. They're already starting to get out here. We've come up with some timelines so we can get within the next few weeks all that done so people can get their insurance claims. We can then start the big contracts to remove the debris, to address all the hazmat issues. Same time that I got to button up the canyons here as it relates to potential flooding with a lot of atmospheric rivers. Remember, we're in the middle of winter. This is January. In fact, the day of this fire, not a stone's throw away, as the crow flies, there was snow right up the mountain here, the same day as this devastating fire here in Altadena. And so all those things have to happen concurrently. But here's the big thing. I'm worried about issues of rebuilding as it relates to scarcity, as it relates to property taxes, meaning scarcity of resources, materials, personnel. I'm worried about time to getting these projects done. And so we want to fast track by eliminating any CEQA requirements. I got Coastal Act changes that we're making. I want to make sure when someone rebuilds that they have their old property tax assessments and that they're not increased. So all of that's been done in the executive order we just announced.
CEQA, Governor, and the Coastal Act are both environmental regulations, and if you're going to be suspending those temporarily, are you concerned about problems that may result from the suspension of those environmental regulations and a potential abuse by developers?
Yeah, we're not going to, and within this executive order, we frame those abuses. We basically bookmark that in the context of maintaining the existing footprints. On the Coastal Act, they allow just a 10% variant, so we're going to be very mindful of that. California leads the nation in environmental stewardship. I'm not going to give that up, but one thing I won't give into is delay. Delay is denial for people. Lives, traditions, places, torn apart, torn asunder, families, schools, community centers, churches, you've seen it. The number of schools that have been lost in this community, and we've got to let people know we have their back. We're going to be back. We're going to do it efficiently and effectively. Don't turn your back. Don't walk away because we want you to come back, rebuild, and rebuild with higher quality building standards, more modern standards. And we want to make sure that the associated costs with that are not disproportionate, especially in a middle-class community like this.
So he's talking about suspending the CEQA and Coastal Act's requirements. So CEQA requires public agencies to look before they leap and consider the environmental consequences of their discretionary actions. CEQA is intended to inform government decision makers and the public about potential environmental effects of proposed activities and to prevent significant avoidable environmental damage. He said he was going to suspend this requirement. He should suspend this indefinitely, or at least reduce the amount of requirements so we can actually start building. Because the red tape that is in California is crazy. Who knew it would take a natural disaster causing $140 billion in damages for us to actually let loose some of the restrictions? Newsom suspends landmark environmental laws to ease rebuilding in wildfire zones. Requirements for building permits and reviews in the California Environmental Quality Act and the California Coastal Act will be eased for victims of the fires in Pacific Palisades, Altadena, and other communities. So any communities affected by the wildfires. And it didn't say homes, it said communities. So every part of the community. Newsom called for a California version of the Marshall Plan, the American effort to rebuild Western Europe after World War II. So right here it says, the environmental laws will be suspended for the victims seeking to rebuild their homes and businesses. Requirements for building permits and reviews in California Equality Act and Coastal Act will be eased for victims of the fires. They should be easing them for everybody so we can actually get some buildings going on. Right here, waivers of the Environmental Quality Act shave years off the process for homeowners, but building permits issued by local governments represent another major hurdle. Yeah, get rid of all the red tape. It's that simple and we can start building. In the wake of the fires, housing analysts have renewed calls for the city of LA to speed up its processes. A 2023 study found that the average unit in a multifamily property is a residential real estate that allows for 2 or more households to live in at a time. These properties can range from small apartment buildings with just a few units to larger high-rise apartment complexes with hundreds of units, unlike single-family homes. Let's read that again. A 2023 study found that the average unit in a multifamily property in the city took 5 years to complete, with a substantial portion of that time related to bureaucratic approval. Why did they just focus on multifamily? Where else does it talk about single-family homes? Nowhere. It doesn't ever say single-family homes in this whole article. It says multifamily. They're already telling you right now they're going to build mass apartments. It's good for the construction industry if you're a builder. Apartment complexes are great money. They're all the same with slight variations. So it's going to be cookie cutter stuff. You get the first 3 or 4 complexes down, and then you can just mass produce all of them. And your process is going to go quick, and you're going to make a lot of money. You're probably thinking, no, they're not going to build apartments. Single family homes burn down. They're going to try and rebuild. No. Anyone who's ever had to rebuild their entire house knows how difficult and expensive it can be. Yes, they're getting help, but I guarantee right now, builders are offering them cash for their property right now as we speak, so they can buy their land. They're probably offering them the same amount or 1.5 times what the original property value was, so they can buy the land from all these people who were devastated by the fire. What's the saying? Never let a good tragedy go to waste, something like that. And I guarantee you that's what's going to happen. All these developers are going to start buying up all these devastated homes because the people are going to be desperate and they just want to live somewhere. Because what happens is you're going to get funding for your house and you're going to end up spending a lot of that funding on a temporary house. The government's not going to house you. They're going to give you the money for the house for you to rebuild. But you're still going to need to have a temporary home. And most people are probably going to just decide to move and just not deal with it, or they're going to just burn through their money on whatever property they live at. Environmentalists also noted that the governor's executive order restates an existing provision in the California Coastal Act that provides exemptions for fire rebuilds. The Coastal Act already has homeowner fire rebuilds in place, but the whole point is he's going to try and rezone all these cities because he said that in the plan. What did he say? Go back to the clip. Rewind.
Starting to organize how we can put together a collection of individuals on philanthropy for recovery, how we can organize the region.
You saw that? Okay. He's changing it. He's working with the developers. He's working with the city to relabel these communities and change the zoning so they can build whatever they want to build. Usually businesses or apartment complexes. The California Coastal Commission noted last week that the state already clearly lays out the reconstruction of homes, businesses, and other structures destroyed by disasters, and that they're exempt from typical coastal development permits. If this is already laid out, and this has been laid out for years and years and years and years, why are they making such a big deal about an executive order? That's not what the executive order is about. This is already in place. People just didn't know about it because why would you care? Your house, you're not affected by it, so why do you care about this? It's all just puppeteering for the plan they had in place in the beginning when these fires started, which we still don't know the cause of these fires. I guarantee you they're just going to say power lines because the high winds, which is very common. PG&E, which is the electric company that is taking care of a lot of places near LA, they've been responsible for most of the fires that have happened in California, really. So what happens is the high winds will push the electrical line cables and swing them back and forth until they eventually contact each other. And once they do, it'll create an arc. And then that arc shoots sparks, which can hit the brush. The only thing you can maybe do is put the poles closer so there's not as much slack, or spread out the distance that the poles are so the cables are further away and they can't contact when they swing. So right here, CEQA was signed into law by Ronald Reagan in 1970. And the Coastal Act was created in 1972. So none of these had anything to do with Gavin Newsom. He is now just suspending those so he can build, which they should have done this a long time ago so we can stop worrying about the housing crisis in California. They figured out how to do it, just burn down all the houses and throw apartments up, and no more housing crisis because everyone's living in small apartments. Small, expensive apartments. Don't forget about that. He said we need to reimagine LA 2.0. If you're in the construction industry, blue collar industry, it doesn't matter what trade you are. Right now, the Olympics is going to happen. He's talked about the Super Bowl. He mentioned the World Cup. Are all coming to LA within the next few years. There's going to be a lot of developing, a lot of building, all the new businesses, apartments, some houses that are going to be rebuilt. Everything that's happening in LA is going to be a blue collar paradise. So if you want to make a crap ton of money, I'd say start a small business and go to LA right now and start working on projects. Once you make $10 million in the 5-6 years that it takes to build all this, then you can come back and you're chilling. He mentioned that he's going to try and fast track everything. So I guarantee you people are going to take advantage of it. The state law already clearly lays out the reconstruction of homes, businesses, and most other structures destroyed by a disaster are exempt from typical coastal development permits, as long as the new building is sited in the same location and is not more than 10% larger or taller than the destroyed structure. So I think what they're going to do to get around this is probably build businesses or apartments the same size or 10% bigger than whatever structure was destroyed, and then get the permit to extend that, to continue building. That would be my best guess. I could be completely wrong. To me, that's like a workaround for building these, is build the structure, build the base, make it the same size within 10%, build the rest later. The point is to start working on it and start building it so it can be locked in. Like I said, look out for all these homeowners that lost their homes to be bought out of their property because they don't want to deal with it, and to look for apartment complexes and businesses to be built in its place. Also look out for zoning changes so these type of structures can be built in areas that were typically considered residential zones. That said, I don't trust Gavin Newsom more than I can throw him, And I guarantee you, I can't throw them very far. Who knows? Maybe this has been the plan the entire time. We don't know. We'll know when they start building. We'll know in 2 years, once most of the stuff is laid out and the plan is done and the foundations are built. Because that's all it takes, is about 2 years for everything to be started and at a decent pace. Remember, he also halted the price of material. So that way, it's not going to be extremely expensive for these people to build their homes. So that means that there's going to be a bunch of material sent over to California. So delivery truck drivers are going to have a crap ton of work. Supply houses are going to be flying through material. There's going to be a huge influx of material heading to California and being used. Yes, it's devastating. Yes, it's a scummy thing that happened. People are going to be taking advantage in this. But if you are a builder, if you're a tradesman, this is your opportunity to take advantage of something that's happened to other people that's unfortunate. If you don't jump on this, I guarantee you someone else will, and they'll become a multimillionaire. In 2008, when the economy crashed, the biggest winners were those who invested when the market was hurting. And right now, the market in California is hurting.